Neeraj can just speak to him whether he's joining or not. That's.
Okay.
I spoke to him yesterday and personally had called him and even messaged him today also. So if he is joining, we would be really welcoming him to our department teaching session. So, Dr. Neeraj and Nachiket, just take over the whole thing. Yes.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for organizing this wonderful session. And I think that from this new thing that has come inside the department, the residents are going to benefit a lot. This is because it's just teaching. I mean, it's just not a prerogative of the government hospitals, and we have so many great teachers in our private sector also, and Devendra happens to be one of them. I know that he has nurtured and he has taught talent. So many people, the juniors, they have joined him, and he's always been inside the forefront of teaching. And welcome, Devendra, and it's a privilege having you. And we know that you've always been very active inside academic activity. And I would like to thank you for coming, and would also like to thank Shivam sir for giving this opportunity for the private and for the government hospital to collaborate. And this also helps inside widening the horizons of the thought process of the residents also, just because they get used to what they hear in our department from their own consultants. But having a consultant as a guest faculty take the case discussion, it is really going to broaden their thought process. And for Dr. Sanjay Yadav, who is presenting the case, I'd just like to tell that Devendra is a very tough examiner. And if you are able to impress him, then there's no problem in you passing in any kind of exam, be it the MCH exam or be it the DNB exam. And with this, I just want Neeraj to say a few words. Neeraj, can you just put in a few words before the case discussion starts?
I will just interrupt here. I just interrupt. Yeah, I will request everybody to kindly mute yourself. There's some disturbance sound coming. So those who are talking only, please unmute yourself. Yes, Dr. Neeraj, please.
Sir, just a minute, sir. I just talked to Sadasuki, sir. He seems to be having some problem logging in. So I think he has asked us to proceed with the case, and as and when he joins us, he'll let us know, sir.
Okay, I will try to give him on his email also. So,
sir, I have asked him and I have sent him the link also, but let's just get started with the case, and then we'll see what happens.
Right.
Sanjay, you can proceed with the case presentation.
Am I audible, sir?
हाँ बोलो संजय, your voice is breaking. एक बार अपना mic ठीक कर लो.
I think you can remove your headphone and just try to, because that is probably causing some problem. आप बिना headphone के करो, देखो कैसा आवाज आता है.
ये तो stop करना पड़ेगा. I can try.
Sanjay, you can continue then in this way only.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning, all teachers, respected teachers, and esteemed faculty, and my dear colleagues and juniors, sir. Today, I will be discussing a case which is 79-year-old male presented to us with avoiding difficulty since 3 months.
Sanjay, just hold on, sir. Sanjay.
Yes, sir.
संजय कुछ तुम्हारे को माइक को एडजस्ट करना पड़ेगा. Your voice is not at all clear. At least it's not clear on my end. I don't know about others.
No, it's not clear at. I think that there is a lot of cracking up of his voice.
No, it is not clear at anybody's end. I think you remove the headphone and just speak on the computer.
Computer audio ले लो संजय. Why you
computer audio से direct बात करो.
Hello.
Yes, better. Definitely better. Go ahead, Sanjay. Sanjay, go ahead. Sanjay, बोलो.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. अब चालू करो तुम फटाफट.
Yeah.
संजय. संजय.
If he is not audible, can we just ask anybody? Sanjay, any problem? Sanjay? Okay.
I'll call him up, sir.
Right.
I think, sir, at his place, some network connection issue. That's why we cannot hear his audio.
तुम्हारा ऑडियो नहीं चल रहा क्या संजय? तो
ऑडियो का इश्यू है
इसमें कम आती है पापा. इतने सीरियस
Hello, sir.
बच्चे ऐसे ना भयंकर सीरियस और ऐसे बिल्कुल कॉलर टाइट करके यू.
Sir,
I would like
Am I,
excuse me. I would like the support team to please see that you others are muted, please. Why this disturbance? Somebody is saying something and it's coming into the support team.
Yes, sir. Nobody is unmute, sir, right now.
Okay. So Dr. Sanjay,
Yes, sir.
can you just continue, start.
sir, my voice is clear, sir, now?
Perfect.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So today I will be discussing a case, sir, which is a 79-year-old male presented with a voiding difficulty since 3 months, sir. Now elaborating the chief complaint, patient presented with straining during micturition along with poor stream, which was associated with nocturia 3 to 4 times and daytime frequency, which was 10 to 12 times, sir. Then proceed for the negative history. There was no history of any burning micturition. There was no history of any hematuria, pyuria, lithuria. No history of urgency or urge incontinence. There is no history of any urethral instrumentation. No history of fever, flank pain. No history of constipation. There was no history of any chest pain, difficulty in breathing. No history of any backache, weight loss, anorexia, or any jaundice. Yes, sir. Coming on to past history, there was no history of any comorbidity like hypertension, diabetes, or jaundice. No history of any surgery in the past. Patient is married with 3 children. There is no history of any malignancy in the family. Coming on to drug history, no history of any anticoagulant and no history of any drug allergy. Patient is a vegetarian along with non-vegetarian, and he's a tobacco chewer since 12 years, and his bowel habits was normal, sir. That's all about, sir, history, sir.
Now, Sanjay, how old is your patient?
The 79-year-old, sir.
So predominantly he has both obstructive LUTs as well as storage LUTs, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what are the common causes of nocturia in this age group?
Common causes of nocturia are, sir, benign prostatic enlargement, sir.
And first of all, define nocturia for us. What is the definition of nocturia?
Sir, when a patient wake up for more than 1 times in a night, sir, which was preceded and followed by a sleep.
What are the other causes of nocturia, as Dr. Neeraj asked you?
Sir, other causes, sir, it may be a cause of, sir, nocturnal Sir, there is a concentration ability of the nighttime decrease. So there is a accumulation of the urine at nighttime in the blood.
So nocturnal
when-
polyuria, that is
Nocturnal
nocturnal
polyuria,
polyuria.
yes. Yes, sir.
What else?
Sir, nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, sir.
So will that cause nocturia? What's the difference between nocturia and nocturnal polyuria?
Sir, nocturia is basically the frequency with which patient wake up in the night. That is more than one. But nocturnal polyuria is the amount of urine which was produced during night, which is more, sir. Nocturnal volume of the urine, which is more, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And yes, sir.
Another is this CHF, history of CHF or pedal edema that also leads to the increased urine output and actual urine. That has to be asked in history.
Yes, sir.
And also don't forget if the patient is taking any diuretic drug in the night, you know, for hypertension, if the patient, Sanjay, always ask the drug history. This goes just by these small things you can, you know, always remember drugs can also cause nocturia.
One of the most important, I think, which we usually miss in many of these patients who are obese, right? Where you will see these obese patients with short neck, always ask them the history of snoring. Obstructive sleep apnea is a very common cause for nocturia. And unless you know about it, you would not come to a diagnosis. So always ask these patients about history of snoring, and obstructive sleep apnea is a totally different. So these are non-urological causes for nocturia. As Dr. Devinder said about CHF, about pedal edema, and this is obstructive sleep apnea, drug-induced, right? Okay, go ahead, please.
Sir, patient presented with chief complaint of voiding fluid, sir.
You can start from there only.
Then coming on to general physical examination.
What things come to your mind after hearing the history of the patient before you proceed to physical examination?
Sir,
what conditions can cause these symptoms?
Sir, this old age patient presented with this complaint, first diagnosis will be, sir, benign prostatic enlargement, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And
second can be, sir, benign prostatic enlargement with a bladder stone, sir. And other will be, sir, simply, sir, a UTI can also cause.
What is the problem in keeping CA prostate in the upside in the list of the DD?
Sir, CA prostate, until unless it is advanced, sir, locally advanced, it rarely produces symptoms, sir.
Cannot CA prostate produce the same symptoms as BPH?
Yes, sir. It can produce, sir. It can produce.
Then why are you saying that only in advanced cases it causes symptoms? In advanced cases, it would cause other symptoms like, you know, backache, symptoms of metastatic spread, or bladder outlet obstruction, or hydronephrosis. But the initial symptomatology of CA prostate would be similar to that of a BPH.
Yes, sir.
So you said UTI and bladder stones. Are these symptoms the classical presentation of UTI and bladder stones?
No, sir.
क्या symptoms होंगे bladder stone में?
Sir, painful micturition is the predominant symptom, sir.
Your patient does not have painful micturition.
Yes, sir. So
what is the classical pattern of micturition in bladder stone?
Sir, along with painful micturition, there is intermittency of the. Yes, sir.
And there is a classical term used to describe it.
Strangury, sir. Strangury pain.
Okay.
And occasionally, patient can present with hematuria also, sir.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, sir, first will be, sir, benign prostate enlargement. Second can be a CA prostate, sir. Third can be a benign prostate enlargement with a bladder stone or alone with bladder stone, sir.
Sanjay,
Yes.
which is a symptom which would probably would be more common in CA prostate and not in BPH, or rather it would be rather only present in CA prostate?
So it is obstructive symptoms, sir.
No, obstructive would be there in BPH also.
So don't know, sir.
Hematospermia.
Yes.
If the patient is passing blood in the ejaculate, it would be typical of CA prostate if you are taking that into the differential diagnosis. But BPH will not cause hematospermia, right?
Yes.
Can CA prostate cause hematuria?
Yes, sir.
Out of BPH and CA prostate, in which condition is hematuria more common?
Sir, BPH.
BPH. Okay.
Right. Go ahead.
Proceed.
So, on looking at the general physical examination, patient was conscious, cooperative, well built, and nourished, with the vitals stable, sir. There was no any pallar, icterus, any clubbing, cyanosis, any pedal edema, or no lymphadenopathy was there, sir. And coming on to systemic examination, which was normal, sir. Per abdominal examination, there was no organomegaly. Abdomen was soft. And hernial sites were normal. Her back and his back and spine was normal, sir. External genitalia examination was normal. Coming on to DRE, anal tone was normal, sir. There was a grade 2 enlarged prostate, which was non-tender, and there is a hard nodule present on right side of the prostate, and rest of the prostate was firm. Median sulcus obliterated, and mucosa overlying the prostate was free, sir.
What next, Sanjay?
Coming on to the sir general investigation, sir. Hemoglobin was 12.3, sir. Counts were normal. Platelets were normal. PTINR were 1.05 normal, and all RFT and RFT were normal, sir. Urine routine examination was normal, and cultures show sterile growth, sterile. His serum PSA was more than 100 nanograms, sir. And then this picture showing USG with bladder partially filled and along with enlarged prostate, sir. This is USG showing right kidney, left kidney, which is normal, looking normal, sir. And the lower film is bladder.
Why did you get the USG done when the patient has presented with CA prostate, PSA more than 100?
Right.
Why did you get the ultrasound done?
So because patient presented with voiding difficulties or obstructive lutes. So I want to know patient PVR and about want to know prostate size, sir. Any upper tract symptoms. So first, my target is to relieve the patient symptoms, sir.
What are the AUA guidelines for imaging of the KUB region in cases of LUTS? Is ultrasound the first investigation of choice?
Sir, in male patients, patient presented with the LUTS, USG should be done, sir.
ये guidelines में लिखा हुआ है ये? Which guidelines say that ultrasound should be done first? What information will you get by ultrasound? You already have done a per-rectal examination. It's a grade 2 prostate, hard consistency. The bladder is not palpable, so means he is not in retention. and apparently you said about the creatinine is normal, no?
Yes, sir.
What additional information will ultrasound give you?
Sir, ultrasound can, so apart from his DRE suggestive of hard prostate, my differentials will be narrowed down, sir, with the help of USG, sir. It can show me a bladder stone, sir. If DRE was normal, sir.
Then we're talking about this case. It's a hard prostate, grade 2. The patient is not in retention. Why will you do an ultrasound now when the creatinine is normal?
Sanjay, Dr. Neeraj is rightly saying that the guidelines probably do not say about the taking a whole ultrasound of the abdomen, right? But because ultrasound is probably extension of a physical examination, it is always handy. You have an option that just to see about the post-void residual urine, about upper tract hydroureteronephrosis. Sometimes the creatinine may not go up, even if there is some degree of hydroureteronephrosis. But still, definitely the guidelines do not say seeing the upper tract. Unless you doubt that the patient may have obstructive uropathy, raised creatinine and urea, and then you need to. So it is maybe a kind of option. It's not a mandatory or recommended investigation to do the upper ultrasound, right? So anyway, go ahead.
Sir, USG KUB reporting was suggestive of enlarged prostate with 55 gram prostate with median lobe, sir. And there was significant PVR, which was 55 out of 150, sir. And bilateral kidney were normal, sir. No hydronephrosis was there.
Sanjay, should we go for uroflowmetry in this case?
Sir, after finding of DRE, sir, there is no need of uroflowmetry, sir.
Dr. Devender, Dr. Devender?
Yes, sir.
What is your opinion regarding the ultrasound, uroflowmetry, etc. in these patients?
Ultrasound, there is no harm in because it's a non-invasive test, as you said. So it definitely gives certain idea about the kidney, ureter, and bladder. So that gives you a little bit insight into the bladder. Regarding uroflow, we can avoid uroflow in these patients because by DRE we come to know about there is a hard nodule. But what I'm wondering is that his PS is more than 100 and there is a single nodule on the DRE. So Dr. Sanjay, do you think this is a mismatch or it's corroborate with your clinical finding?
Yes, sir. It definitely is a mismatch, sir. High chance of mismatch, sir. Because at this PSA, sir, more than 100, the DRE suggestive of advanced. Either there may be a seminal vesicle involvement was there, or at least a seminal vesicle invasion should be there. Extra capsular extension should be there.
Is there any criteria of PSA and clinical features like less than 20 to 50 or more than 100? What do you feel about PSA 100? What image do you get with PSA 100 alone?
Sir, more than 100 PSA is suggestive of metastatic, sir.
Yes, that has to be kept in mind.
Yes.
So proceed.
Yes. So along with the USG X-ray, chest X-ray KUB was done, which was normal, sir. Because patient has more than 100 PSA, sir. So that was done, sir, that time. Uroflowmetry is suggestive of, sir, obstructive pattern, sir, with Q max 8.7 and Q average 4.3 with PVR 100 ml, sir, out of 230. Then, sir, MP-MRI was done, sir.
So let us ask you the
why MP-MRI was done in this patient?
Sanjay, let us ask you the questions, right? Don't jump onto the slides.
Yes, sir.
Why MP-MRI was done in this case?
Yeah, that is precisely our question. Why are you willing for a MP-MRI?
PSA 100, PSA 100, you are suspecting a metastatic disease. Why MP-MRI was done in this case?
In AU guidelines, it is suggestive. It is written there that MP-MRI should be done in all the patients, sir, before going for the biopsy, prostatic biopsy, sir.
Yes, Sanjay, what did you say? Repeat it.
Sir, MP-MRI should be done in all the cases before going for the
Which guidelines is that?
Sir, EUA guidelines, sir.
So first of all, I don't think EU guidelines that every case of CA prostate you have to do MPM before biopsy. I don't think there's a just try get me the reference and get me the reference. Not every case before biopsy.
Sir, it is strong recommendation.
Right. No. See, you have to be very clear about, and you have to understand things. Before biopsy, in every case, you would do a multiparametric MRI.
So no. In this case, it is not required, sir. Basically, DRE is hard, sir. PSA more than 100.
Okay, Dr. Devender, what do you think? Is he saying correctly?
No, I don't think MP-MRI should be done in that high PSA and hard nodule prostate. You already failed.
Yes. So still we do not know the biopsy. We haven't done the biopsy yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, excuse me, sir. So basically, I personally did not go for sir MP-MRI, but this slide, this presentation had a continuity with MP-MRI, sir. So it's what a slide, sir. It's just a slide. Next slide.
No, you have to tell what you are going to do. You are not going to do according to what the slides are there. You are presenting a case. So you can do whatever you want to do, and you cannot get out of by saying this, that the slide was there. So we are giving you the option of doing whatever in the whole world you like, but this is not going to be an option that as it was inside the presentation. That's why I said MP-MRI. And an MP-MRI should be done for the localization and detection of a clinically significant prostate cancer in a negative biopsy. Or if you're thinking that it's a localized CA prostate.
And when the PSA falls in a gray zone from 4 to 10.
Exactly.
That is one of the classical indications of multiparametric MRI today, only when a clinically negative prostate cancer with a PSA in the gray zone.
Even on rectal examination, you don't have a hard nodule, it's a normal palpable, right? So you have to be very clear about these things, right?
Yes, sir. I would first go for biopsy.
Go ahead.
Okay. And what biopsy would you prefer in this case?
So trust-guided biopsy, sir. Systematic trust-guided biopsy, sir.
What is your rationale for a trust-guided biopsy? You already have a palpable nodule in the prostate. Why can't you just go for a finger biopsy or a directed biopsy?
Sir, with the finger-guided biopsy, I can miss, sir, some other clinically significant foci, sir. As the prostate cancer is a multifocal origin, sir. So with the finger-guided, I can biopsy a dominant nodule only, sir. Trust will be more systematic, sir. With the help of trust, sir.
Okay, you can argue on both the sides. There is no issue. You can go ahead with biopsy. Okay, but what Dr. Neeraj is suggesting that when you are suspecting a metastatic disease and a palpable nodule, you can go for the finger-guided biopsy also. In these cases, not necessarily do a systematic biopsy. All these criteria for systemic biopsy, MP-MRI are when you are suspecting a localized disease, not a metastatic disease. You need to understand what are you dealing.
Yes.
Got it?
The only thing is that we do not know exactly whether there is metastatic disease or not.
Yeah.
Only a raised PSA may not always tell you about metastasis.
So that's why he can go ahead with systemic biopsy. Fine.
Right. Yes.
Go ahead.
Biopsy will you do? Trust-guided biopsy?
Yes, sir. It was trust guided biopsy, sir.
How many cores?
Sir, 12 cores, sir.
Right. In how many percentage of cases of trust guided biopsy do you miss prostate cancer? What's the positive yield of a trust guided biopsy?
Sir, about, sir, 30 to 40% clinically significant prostate cancer we can miss, sir.
40% you can miss. So the positive yield is only 60%.
60 is more than 60, sir.
You can miss cancers in about 15 to 20% of the
Okay, sir.
I would request the other third-year residents at least to take part in the discussion also. If you find anywhere that this is not probably correct, or you want to add something in the history, physical examination which was missed, or in the diagnosis or if you think that this is not what you want to do, then please come in. Please, we want others also to interact, the residents at least also, right? Go ahead, please.
Sir, yes, sir. Prostatic biopsy was suggestive of adenocarcinoma of prostate, sir, with Gleason's score 8, 4+4, which was Gleason grade group 4, sir.
Sanjay, I asked you a question. In which cases can you miss prostate biopsy on a truss?
Sir, when there is no
Sir, apex reason, sir.
DRE finding, sir.
No. Let Sanjay answer.
Oh, sorry, sir.
संजय कौन से केसेस में मिस कर सकते हैं अपन? In which area would the prostate cancer be located and it can be missed on truss?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is apex, sir. Apex region of the prostate can be missed, sir.
Apex, nahin, not apex. It is the anterior zone, right? Anterior zone of the prostate harboring a clinically significant cancer can be missed on truss, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Dr. Neeraj is right. Anterior and the transition zone, which is usually missed in many times on truss-guided biopsy. Apex is usually always, we take biopsy from the apex zone, right? Base, middle, and apex.
So what's saturation biopsy?
So saturation biopsy, in saturation biopsy, the biopsy core will be more than 20, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
More than 20 cores.
Yes,
so suppose you have done a biopsy on this patient and the truss biopsy report comes out to be foci of chronic prostatitis.
Yes, sir.
No definite evidence of malignancy is seen. And the biopsy report shows foci of chronic prostatitis with microabscesses.
Sir,
what would your approach be now?
Then I will go for, sir, systematic biopsy, sir.
अभी भी तो systematic biopsy ली है आपने. Plus is a systematic biopsy only.
Sorry, sir. Saturation biopsy, sir. Sorry. Sir, saturation biopsy, as at this PSA, sir, more than 100 PSA, DRE, suggestive hard nodules, sir, it can be a chronic prostatitis. So I will go for.
You have never come across patients with prostatitis who have got a PSA of 100 or more, is it? Sometimes do you see patients of acute prostatitis, chronic prostatitis infarction with a very high PSA? Or do you think that your pathologist is not worth his salt that ये तो बेकार आदमी है, chronic prostatitis report कर दिया? खारिज कर दो बिल्कुल उसको, कह दो गटर में फेंक दो कि नहीं ये तो बेकार है biopsy.
The patient is very concerned about his PSA, about his findings, and he's asking you, Doctor, the best biopsy available which is present. I don't want a second negative repeat biopsy. Whatever is there has to be there in the second biopsy. If you had access to all the latest things, what would the choice be?
Sir,
Saturation biopsy, you mean you will do a repeat thrust and take more cores, right?
sir, then MRI truss fusion biopsy, sir. The best biopsy will be, sir, MRI truss fusion biopsy, sir.
What are the types of MRI fusion biopsies?
Sir, MRI first is cognition based, sir. Then in-bore MRI, sir. In-bore MRI, and then software based, sir. 3 types of it.
So just make it a more in that order. One is the cognitive biopsy that you said, yes. And the other is what is you said about the software that is usually done, right? And the third is the in-bore. In-bore is usually not available, I think, most of the places. Yes? Right.
So you can take an MRI fusion biopsy, which is basically a truss biopsy, right? You initially
Yes,
take
sir.
an MRI, then fuse it with the ultrasound images, and then take a biopsy under truss guidance. But you can also take a MRI targeted biopsy, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in continuity with this discussion, suppose this patient has got negative biopsy, as Dr. Neeraj suggested. It's initially prostatic abscess. If another scenario, there is negative biopsy, how would you follow these patients? Suppose PSA is not 100.
So then
I'm giving a
patient,
clinical scenario, PSA is around 10, biopsy is negative. How would you follow this patient? Despite saturation biopsy, everything is negative.
so then I will follow patient, first few patients symptomatically treatments, sir. Alpha blocker, I will start them. And along with antibiotic, I will start, sir. And then I will advise patient to follow up after 1 month, sir, with the repeat PSA, sir.
Okay, repeat PSA is same.
Then I can manage the patient in the line of, sir, or benign prostatic enlargement, sir.
Okay. So
the PSA is not falling, it's consistently elevated. The patient is very concerned about his PSA. How can you put him on medical management? You have to rule out prostate cancer, no?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So
Dr. Neeraj had said, what is the role of, after negative biopsy, the role of multi-parametric MRI, right?
Yes, sir.
Now comes.
Why did you say that? Now comes the role of multi-parametric MRI. And if multi-parametric MRI is suggestive, then you may go ahead with, again, MRI fusion biopsy, targeted biopsy, all those different types of biopsies to actually rule out any other lesion in the CA, in the prostate.
Suppose, Sanjay, suppose
Yes,
the biopsy comes as a high grade PIN or biopsy says atypical adenosis hyperplasia, then what you will do?
Sir, only one site of high grade PIN is not indication for repeat biopsy, sir. If more than one course were positive, then repeat biopsy will be indicated in a 6 months.
So you do not want to repeat biopsy again immediately?
Yes, sir.
What are the chances of a patient having a significant CA prostate if the biopsy comes out to be SNR type of histology? What are the chances of him harboring a malignancy somewhere in the prostate?
Sir, SNR adenocarcinoma, if the biopsy says.
Now we're talking about high grade PIN.
Yes, sir.
So what are the chances of the patient having a significant prostate cancer if he has a high grade PIN?
Sir, it is about 6 to 20%, sir. About
20% में उसको छोड़ थोड़ी ना दोगे 6 महीने के लिए कि नहीं 20% is a significant. I believe it to be higher to the range of 25%. So keeping in mind the upper value of 25%, how can you not do anything for 6 months for these patients?
Sir, it is extensive PIN, sir. Should be.
Are there any surrogate markers that you can use instead of doing nothing for 6 months? Can you use any surrogate marker to find out whether the patient has CA prostate?
Sir, surrogate biomarkers are available, sir.
Which ones?
Sir, TMP and ERG fusion, sir.
यार कौन करता है यार अपने यहाँ पे तो अवेलेबल होगा 50 साल बाद. Free PSA. Can you use something which is available? Free PSA, total
yes,
PSA, the ratio of free PSA and the total PSA. 6 महीने के लिए can you do a PSA velocity? See how his PSA is doing every 3 monthly.
Yes, sir.
तो वो तो कर सकते हो ना 6 महीने कुछ नहीं करने. Patient is very anxious about the disease process, ना?
Yes, sir. PSA velocity, PSA density, sir, and free and total PSA. Yes, sir.
And you have 4K, you have PHI, you have MTIS, so many things that we discussed in the seminar, right? So you forgot in one day everything. And then we discussed about the immunohistochemical markers also.
Yes.
If there is any confusion about the of that prostate, whether it is CA prostate or benign, the two most important markers that we discussed, that you also forgot. One was about the presence of basal cells, which is usually present in benign tissue only, and the cytokeratin will be positive for a normal BPH tissue. And if it is AMACR positive, it goes in favor of malignancy. Yes? AMACR is alpha methyl acyl coenzyme A racemase, right?
Yes.
So these two markers will tell you exactly whether this is CA prostate or BPH, if there is any equivocality, right? So we all discussed in the seminar. You have to just go through it again and just try to remember all these things, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I want to add one point. In case of high-grade PIN, we should go for saturation biopsy. We should not wait for another 6 months. What is you suggest, sir?
I think so. If it is a high-grade PIN, I think we should rule out malignancy. What do you say, Devender?
If it's a high-grade PN, then we should do the saturation. All these. That's why I put this point into the discussion that in all these situations, we can go for saturation biopsy. We can do MR fusion biopsy. These are the cases where we do these biopsies. If it is negative, then these patients need to be followed up with 6 monthly PSA.
Strict follow-up.
Yeah, and then repeat biopsy. Even if PSA is in same category, we should repeat the biopsy up 1 to 1.5 year follow-up. So these are the cases where we need a strict follow-up and repeat biopsy also after 1 year to 1.5 year.
One of the approaches that we can take in high-grade PIN, especially low-grade PIN may not be very clinically significant, but high-grade PIN, it depends on the number of cores that the high-grade PIN is positive in. So if a significant number of your cores are positive for high-grade PIN, then these need to be evaluated further by doing a saturation biopsy. But say if only 2 or 3 cores are only positive, these patients, I think, can be kept under, close watch or a follow-up, and a repeat biopsy and a PSA can be done at regular intervals. So number of cores involved by high-grade PIN would also be a important marker.
Sanjay, what is missing in this biopsy? This biopsy, if I say it is incomplete.
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, it is not included number of biopsy cores. Basically it is included, 6 out of 12. But how much percentage of one core is positive, it is not mentioned here. And also there is no mention of perineural invasion. Yes, sir.
Very good.
We have Dr. Harjinder Singh who has also joined. Dr. Harjinder, we really welcome you in our class. Can you unmute yourself? Dr. Harjinder? Okay, anyway. So if you are there, just kindly unmute yourself and we welcome you. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So biopsy was Gleason's score was 8 with 4 plus 4 was the score, sir, and 6 out of 12 core was positive, sir. No lymphomuscular invasion was there. So, yes, sir.
How do you think is all these things are important? The number of cores positive, the percentage of one core positive.
Percentage of core and also number of cores important in case of Gleason's score 6 or 7, sir. Yes, sir. As when we kept patient for active surveillance, sir. So
what exactly is the term, or what exactly how you proceed? That is very important, and how will it change your management?
So, sir, if the in case of low risk or intermediate risk patients, if the biopsy codes
exactly, so you need to risk stratify these patients. So risk stratification is important, right?
Yes, sir.
So that will dictate your management of the patient. So can you just give us a brief idea about the risk stratification?
Yes, sir. Sir, EUA 2017 risk stratified the localized and locally advanced prostate cancer into low risk, intermediate, and high risk patients. In low risk patients, there are 3 parameters. First is Gleason's PSA, then Gleason score, and third one is clinical findings on DRE. In low risk, PSA should be more than less than 10, and Gleason score will be 6 or less than Gleason score should be 6, and clinically T1C should be included, sir. These all should be present in low risk, and in intermediate risk, PSA would be between 10 to 20, and that Gleason score will be 7, and in a clinical stage T2B should be was included in the intermediate risk, and in localizer T1 and T2A is also included in the low risk, and in high risk more than 20 PSA, and clinical stage T2C, and Gleason score more than 7.
So I will ask any other third-year resident where he went wrong in this particular risk stratification that he is saying: low risk, intermediate risk, and high risk. There are NCCN guideline according to this. There's about 6 risk stratifications. But if you take 3 risk stratifications, where he went wrong? Third year, please. Third year. So no third year.
Sir, high risk, he kept PSA 7 in high risk. PSA 8 and above is in high risk group. And there are six categories.
Not PSA, Gleason's.
Sorry, Gleason's. Sorry.
You are Dr. Prashant, na?
Yes, sir. Good.
नहीं प्रशांत, मैं थर्ड ईयर से पूछ रहा हूँ.
थर्ड ईयर सारे एब्सेंट.
एब्सेंट तो नहीं है, बैठे हुए हैं, वीडियोस भी ऑन हैं, but they are not saying anything. So see, what he missed in the low risk was it is T1 to T2A. If you are stratified only in 3 groups, right? So it is not only T1C. So if it is only 1C, then you are going into the NCCN guidelines stratification, where it is very low risk, and intermediate risk again goes into favorable, unfavorable, and high risk goes again very high risk and very high risk. So there are 6 stratifications with NCCN guidelines. So when you are saying about 3, then 1 to 2A becomes the low risk category. Anyway, go ahead.
अब आगे क्या करोगे संजय इसमें? Now you have the biopsy, you have all the clinical findings. Do you want to work upon this patient more, or is it enough?
Sir, I want to stage the disease, sir, further, sir.
You want to stage the disease?
Yes, sir. As the PSA is more than 100, sir, and Gleason first I would like to risk stratify this patient, as the patient has Gleason scores 8, PSA more than 100, and DRE it is a T2A, sir, most likely T2A. So a patient kept in a high risk localized group.
Why do you say localized group?
So because DRE findings suggest of only hard nodule in the one lobe, sir.
See, once
say localized, or just because of your DRE finding, no?
Yes, sir.
I think metastasis. Metastatic workup kya kiya beta?
I think, sir, if you are feeling a prostatic nodule on DRE, then it is already T3A disease clinically. So in T2A, we cannot find a nodule on DRE.
Prashant, I don't agree.
Sir, I want to have something to say regarding this.
Yeah.
As the PSA, I think that as the PSA, his understanding of risk stratification is wrong. This is because the PSA is already 100 and more than 100. So it's just not all a combination of things that are required. The PSA is more than 100 with a biopsy confirmed. So already, even though only one parameter needs to be positive to put him into high risk. So he cannot, what he's saying is that he's saying it's high risk as well as localized. He's keeping it localized. This is because he's seeing that there's a nodule. He's keeping it high risk. This was a PSA. His concept is wrong. Only one parameter has to be there to make it either a low risk, an intermediate risk, or a high risk. A combination of parameters need not be there actually.
Exactly. For risk stratification, you are perfectly correct. But for staging and for whether it is a metastatic or non-metastatic, then it could be different also, right? Localized cancer could be high grade. A metastatic cancer could also be high grade. So let's, have you done a metastatic workup?
Sir, yes. I just want to tell Sanjay one thing. I think that it will clear his thing. Sanjay,
yes,
if the Gleason score in this patient comes out to be 5, and his PSA is 100, then aisa nahi hai you are going to keep him inside a low risk category. You have to keep him inside a high risk category. This is because even though his biopsy and his score has come out to be say less than 7, but or less than 6, but if the PSA only one criteria is more, so he already automatically shifted into a high risk. So don't think that you have to combine all these parameters for his stratification. A single parameter is enough for a patient to be kept inside whatever category you want to keep him into.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. Only in the NCC and risk stratification, if you are suppose trying to divide between favorable and unfavorable intermediate risk, then there is a criteria whether they are fulfilling one criteria or more than one criteria. There the number of criteria would come in. Otherwise, if you are putting only 3 risk stratification, only one criteria is good enough to tell you whether this is low, intermediate, or high grade, right? Dr. Rahul is there. So from Jammu, we welcome Dr. Rahul. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Please go ahead with your question, please.
Sir, for the candidate, see, CA prostate is not a very simple thing and a 2 and 2 4 type of thing. CA prostate is a very complicated thing. So both the candidate, as per the candidate, he is confusing the things with the PSA and with the localized what he's examining. Just one question, not taking the debate anywhere else. To the candidate, what is the probability of having the disease in both the lobes if the disease is palpable in one lobe? He's able to palpate nodule in one. What is his probability of having the disease in both the lobes?
Dr. Sanjay, please answer the question of Dr. Rahul. He is a very senior urologist from Jammu. So we are really delighted to have him. Dr. Sanjay, please answer his question.
Sir, I don't know exactly the incidence or percentage, but
no, whether it possible or not, just tell me whether yes,
it is possible, sir. It is dependent on the observer, sir, who did the DRE also. Maybe
if if on a DRE, if nodule is palpable on one lobe, there's an 80% probability that the patient is having a disease in both the lobes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Rahul. Dr. Harjinder, if he is unmuted, would request Dr. Harjinder also to come in. Anyway, so go ahead, Neeraj.
Okay, so what are the indications for metastatic workup in prostate cancer, Sanjay?
Sir, patient falls in the intermediate and high risk category should get a metastatic workup, sir.
So is it because of the risk stratification that you do a metastatic workup or on some other parameters? Suppose he falls into the low risk group.
Yes, sir.
Then you would not do a metastatic workup?
No, sir.
Okay.
So,
And
yes,
got nothing to do with your PSA and the Gleason's grade alone?
Sir, in low risk patient, when I decide my patients, when I counsel patient about the treatment plan, sir, I can whether I can keep patient for active surveillance or radical prostatectomy or a radiotherapy, then I have to do, sir, local staging, sir, for which I need a MP-MRI, sir. Otherwise, other metastatic workup like bone scan or
Parametric MRI, we are talking about metastatic workup. What things are you going to do in a metastatic workup?
sir, in metastatic workup, abdominopelvic CT or MRI can be done along with bone scan, sir.
So which type of MRI? Multiparametric MRI or simple T2 weighted MRI?
Sir, simple T2 weighted MRI is enough, sir.
We have Dr. Wazir Singh also with us. Dr. Wazir, welcome. Can you unmute yourself? And there are two others who are not from the department, Dr. Sanyam Nandavani and Dr. Gaurav Fauzdar. I would welcome you, all of you. And if you can just identify yourself and just let us know exactly where you are from, we would be very glad.
Sir, they are from our department, sir.
Gaurav is Gaurav.
Yes, sir.
I am really sorry because they may not have come in my unit, our unit. So probably I don't know. So both of us, Dr. Wazir Singh, definitely, if he is there, he is most welcome. Wazir Singh is probably not from our unit, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. Anyway.
Okay, so you are doing a metastatic workup by doing a T2 weighted MRI and a bone scan.
Yes, sir.
So recently, there has been a, what is your concept on whole body PSMA PET scan? That is one investigation that can tell you both about the local staging as well as the distant metastatic workup in a single investigation.
Yes, sir.
So do you have any views on whole body PSMA PET scan versus MRI 1 and a bone scan 2nd?
Yes, sir. Definitely, there is a role of PSMA PET scan, and there are multiple trials ongoing, but it is not a standard guideline till now, sir. But in biochemical recurrence after radical prostatectomy or radiotherapy, there is a definitive role of PSMA PET scan.
Would you like to do a PSMA PET inside the primary evaluation of prostate malignancy?
Yes, sir. I would like
primary evaluation mein, would you do a PET PSMA PET?
No, sir. For metastatic setting, sir. Instead of MRI and
तो primary evaluation में metastasis भी तो आ सकता है ना?
Yes, sir.
In your primary evaluation, would you like to get a PET scan done inside these patients? PSMA PET.
Sir, I can do, sir, in the primary evaluation also, sir.
No, let me tell you that presently PSMA PET is not, advised inside the primary evaluation of CA prostate. It is only inside follow-up. Yeah, inside follow-up, if you think that the patient has got a biochemical recurrence, or if there is evidence that he might have a metastasis and follow-up, then you should do PSMA PET.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you are thinking that the patient is a low risk patient or an intermediate risk patient, then in the primary evaluation, a PSMA PET should not be done. Right? You could only do it inside follow-up, or if you think that the patient has metastasis already. But usually inside the primary follow-up, no guideline would allow you to do a PSMA PET.
Exactly, that's what Dr. Sanjay had said, that guidelines probably do not say. But then again, there is a debate, and probably the newer guidelines may include PSMA PET. So I would here ask Dr. Devinder and Dr. Rahul both. Dr. Devinder, please come in and just give your comments on PSMA PET CT and its role at present.
So right now, in situation like this, if you're discussing this patient, we can go ahead with PSMA PET CT also, because we have to evaluate the metastatic disease, and PSMA PET CT is more sensitive in comparison to combination of both bone scan as well as MRI. So if financially patient is affordable, PSMA PET CT could be a investigation of choice for these patients to assess the whole metastatic disease. This is my view on this aspect.
Dr. Rahul.
Keeping as this is a class and the candidate is appearing for the exam, my take on this is what the candidate answered was absolutely correct. One, he has to talk about what are the guidelines. Second, what is a rational practice in what he should be, we are expecting out of him. And third is that since it is no guideline mentions PSMA PET scan on the evaluation role for treatment management for as of now, so the candidate was absolutely correct in saying that PSMA PET scan he would not like to do. Just one thing is for the candidate that he should not get bullied down by the, when everybody is asking PSMA, he should be very clear in his thought process. No means no, it is not required. As a clinician, we may do it one odd case here and there is something different. But for a candidate point of view, from the teaching class point of view, I think he was absolutely correct.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When we are teaching, we go as per the guidelines, right? So we know exactly that in hospitals and personally also private, we might PSMA PET quite often, but when we speak of about teaching classes, and we need to go as per the guidelines. Wonderful. So Neeraj, it's already 9:05. Do you think we should continue, or it's okay?
I think we have already had 2 classes on this topic. The last time also we had quite an extensive discussion. And today also we have had a very interactive and very fruitful discussion. So whatever you say, sir, I think it's an unending topic, CA prostate. There is so much to be discussed, and probably even in 4 or 5 classes, this topic would not get over. So whatever you say, sir, I'm fine with it.
I think because it's a new year today and the breakfast time also for many of us. So I would not harass these people by not having their breakfast now. So Dr. Devinder.
This has been a very good initiative on your part, sir, to involve other faculty from Jaipur apart from the medical college. And Devinder Boss, we should be very thankful to Devinder Boss for sparing his valuable time.
Rather, I am thankful to all of you.
So I hope he continues with this trend and gets himself involved in more and more in our teaching schedule.
Rather, it's an opportunity for me. I am heartfully thankful to Dr. Shivam, Dr. Neeraj, and Dr. Nachiket that he make me involved in this discussion. I will look forward to have participate in all the classes whenever you give me opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Devinder. And let me clarify, Neeraj, it was not my initiative, it was department's initiative, all of our, all faculty initiative, right? And so I thank Dr. Devinder for being our special invitee here, and thank Dr. Rahul from Jammu. Wonderful. Thank you very much to have joined us and taken part in the interaction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Dr. Wazir also, who probably could not unmute himself from Rohtak. I thank him also to have participated in. And thank you, everybody, all the residents and all faculty members for your.
Thank you.
Bye, sir.
Thank
From
you,
the
sir. Bye-bye.
and we end up. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Last word from Nachiket.
Sir, thank you everyone for participating, and special thanks to all the people who have joined from outside. Dr. Rahul Gupta, thank you for coming. Dr. Wazir from Rohtak, and special thanks again to Devinder for taking out time from his busy schedule. And we'd love to have his active participation and the knowledge that he can, spread with our residents, and they would have definitely benefited. And again, for this great initiative from the department, we once again thank our HOD, and Happy New Year to everyone. I think that now we can stop the proceedings, sir. Everybody has to now start their own day, and we hope to see everyone tomorrow again at 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Nishike. Thank you so much.
So good day,
Rahul. Yeah, thanks, sir.
everybody. Thank you, and a very happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Baha'r